Hi guys, I'm Law Researcher A.
And I'm Law Researcher B. Today, we're going to have a talk with you guys about freedom! Sorry, I can't do this.
Yes, freedom of speech. Freedom of speech has been the topic of controversy and contention for years on social media platforms, with cases of social abuse and unfair banning from platforms. But before we go deep into the nitty and gritty, we should learn how to define freedom of speech and how it came to its implementation. Freedom of speech can be defined as the right to freedom of expression, the right to hold opinions, the right to receive ideas, and the right to impart and seek information, as well as the right to refrain from speaking. Now, the existence of freedom of speech is a no-brainer to everyone to this day, but are they all aware of its origin? The earliest ideas of free speech can be traced back to multiple instances of rebellion and revolutions. England's Bill of Rights, which was legally established in 1689 after the ousting of King James II during the Glorious Revolution. The first Freedom of the Press Acts in Sweden, set in 1766, was introduced mainly because of a classical liberal who was a member of the parliament. During the French Revolution in 1789 followed the Declaration of the Rights of Man and the Citizen, which firmly stated that the freedom of speech was an undeniable right. Freedom of speech is also the first amendment in the Constitution of the United States, which was written in 1791, and finally Article 19 of the UDHR, Universal Declaration on Human Rights, which protected freedom of expression in 1948. In Malaysia, established in 1967, our freedom of speech is stated in Article 10 of the Constitution, which guarantees every citizen the right to freedom of speech and expression, but is subjected to certain restrictions in the interests of the security of the Federation, morality, relations with other countries, and public order. Social media can be defined as any website or application that allows its users to make, share, and chat with others within a virtual community. Most commonly used social media today includes Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Pinterest, Tumblr, and LinkedIn. Then you have smaller platforms that don't have as big of a user base. Habbo, Wattpad, VK, and Goodreads. Regardless of their differences, they all provide their users with the same purpose. Communication can be broken down into three factors: the sender, the message, and the receiver. A message can be sent from a sender in the form of writing, speaking, or visual medium to a receiver. Multimedia, a term used to describe multiple media formats used to express someone's ideas and thoughts. Examples of that include podcasts, animation, movies, audiobooks, and etc. After that brief history lesson, we can now officially say that the right to freedom of expression is, ironically, not absolute.
Wait a minute. Freedom is not absolute? Chill, mate. I got you covered. In other nations, the position is not that much different. Let me give you a scenario. In James v. Commonwealth of Australia in 1936, AC 578, the House of Lords stated that free speech does not mean freedom of speech. It means speech hedged by all the laws against defamation, blasphemy, sedition, and so on. It means law governed equality.
Limitations of freedom of speech apply when anything that threatens the population's physical well-being or jeopardizes the stability of the economy or institutions of a nation is considered a threat to national security. For instance, Countries often face challenges from organizations that do not officially serve a foreign government but may be backed by foreign powers or accepted by them. Via physical violence or, in some cases, cybercrime, terrorist groups aim to cause chaos and destruction. Online criminals, including those not affiliated with hostile governments or terrorist groups, pose a threat to national security. As a means of stealing or extorting money, cybercriminals can hack economic institutions, government websites, or power infrastructures. In the case of pursuing an ideological agenda, they may commit cybercrimes that target specific people or organizations, whether through blackmail, harassment campaigns, or cyber extortion.
Beside all of that, it is also can be a criticism towards the government or an issue involving the government's secret. Here's another scenario. We have a case law, PP v. Rutinin bin Suhaimin, where according to section 233 of the CMA 1998, the accused was charged with committing an offense for making remarks on a website insulting the Sultan. There are two particularly sensitive issues in Malaysia that are best to avoid. Ethnic rivalry and religion are considered taboo, and discussion of this issue is severely restricted. Okay, so here's a scenario for you that relates to a particular case. In 1988, when Salman Rushdie published his novel, The Satanic Verses, the issue of blasphemy became a worldwide issue, particularly in the Muslim world. Malaysia denounced and banned the book, along with all Islamic countries, because it insulted the most sacred symbols of Islam and resorted to profanity and insulting the family of the Prophet Muhammad.
Let's move away from the broader perspective and focus more on the specifics. We'll walk through some of the offences that people may accidentally fall into while practicing their freedom of speech, including the laws and agencies Malaysia appointed to handle them. Defamation can be defined as the action of damaging or attempting to damage someone's reputation. Defamatory statements can either be in writing, which is called libel, or spoken, which is called slander. This offence falls under the Penal Code of 1950 and the Defamation Act of 1957, and it's handled by the PDRM or the Civil Action Agency.
For your information, sedition is the act of encouraging people to rebel against or overthrow the government. The national law covering such offences is the Printing Press and Publication Act 1984, and it is enforced by none other than the Ministry of Home Affairs. It is important to note that with the rise of social media, online defamation and sedition became more relevant. Alright folks, we are now at the end of our video. We hope you can understand the information that we provide about freedom of speech.
We also hope that you were thoroughly entertained by this video. See you next time!